and gentlemen, Selamat Sejahtera, Salam Malaysia Madani, dan Salam Penghargaan Luar Biasa. I have with me right here today YB Nik Nazmi, Nik Ahmad. It's an honor to be able to speak with you, YB. Right now, we're in the middle of PMX's Penghargaan Luar Biasa speech right here, so thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me.
Yep, welcome. Good to be here.
Thank you so much. We are here today, in fact, with YB Nik Nazmi, who is the former Minister of Natural Resources and Environmental Sustainability. He is the 81st Lee Kuan Yew Fellow, and also Pride of KYUEM, MCKK, LaSalle, PJ, and the boss also of my ex-student, May. So it's an honor to speak with you. And yeah, so I look forward to our conversation.
Yep.
So, YB, how do you feel now that you've just concluded your Lee Kuan Yew Fellowship and now you're coming back into Parliament?
Feels good. Coming back under a different capacity as a parliamentary backbencher, something that I've done before as when I came in 2018 until 2020, and then I was in opposition after Sheraton move until 2022. Then I became a cabinet minister. So it's part of being a parliamentarian, and nothing unusual for me. So now I have to play a different role than when I was part of the government administration.
Right. And you were recently moved over to Section D, was it, of the Malaysian Parliament?
Yeah. So that's a normal sitting adjustment that they do. So I used to sit, I think, pretty much the same section previously. So yeah, it will depend on your seniority in the party, your seniority in government. So in front of me is Dr. Wan Azizah, Guan Eng, Syamuddin Hussein, Shafi Abdal. In the same row as me is Rafizi, the MB of Selangor and Negeri Sembilan, and also the Chief Minister of Penang. The arrangement is based on what position you hold in the party and what your formal position is in government.
Right. Yeah. But it must be a huge transition for you, though, YB. I mean, so many different things happen. You resigned as the Minister of the Environment, then there was a whole judicial independence crisis that has been transpiring. I say has been because, well, I mean, it's an open question. Did it get resolved or has it not been resolved? I don't know. That's something to think about as well. Then, of course, there were the deputy president elections, and now here we are, really at the start of Parliament, right after your time in Singapore. And I guess, YB, my immediate question is, how was Singapore like for you? I mean, going on the Lee Kuan Yew Fellowship must have been a very interesting experience in a whole bunch of different ways.
The Lee Kuan Yew Exchange Fellowship is something that they've done since the 1990s, and some of the Malaysians that have been on it include Khairi Jamaluddin, Saifuddin Abdullah, Nancy Shukri. So I think overall there have been 8 Malaysians that have gone through the program. So basically what they do, and I got the invite when I was the minister, but obviously at that time, time was quite tight. You can outline what are the issues you're interested in, and they will curate a program for you. And I managed to meet Ministers Tan Si Leng, Minister Grace Fu, to see the education system close hand. Meet with the Malay community through Mendaki, as well as the Islamic Council of Singapore,
MUIS, right?
MUIS, and go through some of the nature walks and whatnot. It was interesting, and I think that's always, while there are differences between Malaysia and Singapore in many ways, but there are things that we can always learn from one another. And overall, in terms of demographics, in terms of history, there's a lot of bonds between Malaysia and Singapore.
Oh, for sure, yeah. And, well, were there a lot of environmental discussions? Because I remember very immediately that was even focused when, Lee Hsien Loong delivered the keynote at the 69th annual dinner of the Economic Society of Singapore. There was a whole lot of that discussion about the environment and, the carbon contribution really of Singapore, which incidentally is about 0.11% of the world's total carbon emissions, and various other things like that. So were there a lot of like conversations just mainly about like your portfolio, or was it like very like wide ranging? And I guess like what were your main takeaways from the fellowship?
I think, obviously if you look at absolute contributions to carbon emissions, Malaysia and Singapore will always be small, but you have to look, I think, a fairer way of looking at it is per capita, and I think both Malaysia and Singapore are quite high in terms of per capita. Both countries are very susceptible to climate change, so those are things that, issues that we look at. How they manage, obviously Singapore, they have to be very efficient because of the lack of space.
Oh, for sure.
They are in dire need of renewable energy, so that's why they're looking at not just Malaysia but also including Sarawak, but also Australia, Vietnam, and all that. And,
wow.
To get energy, right? Because they can't get their own clean energy, won't be enough.
Right.
Being a small island, Singapore has done quite well in many ways. But I think we also have to take note that it is a city-state, right? So in fact, on certain things, you have to take like just compare KL to Singapore rather than Malaysia to Singapore. It's unfair, The level of development is different, and the task that you have in Malaysia is obviously much more diverse. How do you deliver development not just to KL but to Kelantan, to Sabah, Sarawak, and so on and so forth? Similarly, I think we are in terms of political change and all that, I think Malaysia is obviously a bit more used to it. Things that until perhaps as far as 2018, we have never experienced change in government at the federal level, but now we are, in that sense, I would say, ahead.
Yeah.
And I think, politics in Singapore is also getting more dynamic than what it was, say, 20 years back. So I think, there are things that, we can learn from Singapore, and they are also interested to see about what we do in Malaysia and what they can learn from it.
Absolutely. Now, I think that most people who view this podcast or who know about your role will call you one of the technocrats in government. One of the greatest losses to Malaysia when you had resigned, as your conviction had essentially dictated, you were a part, in fact, of the Malay College Kuala Kangsar. I don't know how often you say the boom wak, boom wak, wak. Is that like, when was the last time you said boom wak, boom wak, wak? Is that how it goes, by the way? Like boom wak, boom wak, wak?
Yeah,
okay.
So, yeah.
And of course, then you went on to KYUEM. And incidentally, here's an interesting link also, which I will show you right about now. Do you remember this picture?
Yes, obviously. Yeah.
And to those of you out there in the audience, that is a picture, in fact, of Rafizi Ramli receiving the Best Student Award from Datuk Sri Anwar Ibrahim, delivering his Penghargaan Luar Biasa speech right about now. And I believe that he was your senior, Rafizi, in MCKK. Was that ever a time when you crossed paths?
No, he left in 1994.
I
came in 1995. I was Form 1 1995. But those pictures were adorning the college at that time. So yeah, I mean, I know of Rafizi, and when I came in, yeah.
I see. Wow. They must be very, very proud of all of you. Have you gone back ever since to teachers and stuff like that?
I have gone back to visit the school. There's always old boys weekends. I meet up with my batchmate in Kuala Kangsar and in KL. So yeah, I do keep in touch with them. Yep.
Wonderful.
The old boys dinner, which PM has also been to. Yeah.
Oh yeah, Makoba, right?
Yeah.
All right. Cool. Wonderful. So then, now I'd like to kind of zero in a little bit on that connection that you have with YB Rafizi at the moment. So people say that you're part of the HIRUK faction. I was watching the speeches that he was giving, and it was a very interesting experience along the way. I see that he also came on your Lebih Masa podcast as well.
Yeah.
Bit of a challenge or a sort of I don't know if it's a brain twister or if it comes easily, but I will ask it anyway. What's one thing that you like about Rafizi Ramli and one thing that you hate about Rafizi Ramli?
Well, one thing that I like is not just that he's smart, but importantly, I think his heart is in the right place. I think that's most important. Maybe one thing that's challenging, that people find him difficult, is that he is direct in what he says. Maybe you do think that if only he can be a bit diplomatic, but to me, it is part of him, and you can't take it out. So over the years, how we have benefited when we were exposing the corruption scandals, when we were challenging, when we managed to change government in 2018. It was that style that brought us there, right? So at the end of the day, it's a bit ironic if people find that a big problem, because when it served them to use or to utilize Rafizi's bluntness and whatnot, then they benefited from it. But then when they feel that it's getting too hot for them, then they feel uncomfortable, and then Rafizi is just chucked out. Right? So
I see.
That to me is something that, yeah, I mean, it is. I mean, I'm a different person. I perhaps people might say a bit more diplomatic than Rafizi. But again, you know, that's part of me. But I think that you have to accept him in as himself.
Right, absolutely, yeah. In slightly more colourful terms, I think that YB Rafizi would have said, you know, like, you like my mulut longkang, as he had said during the speeches.
Yeah.
I thought that was interesting. Yeah, it's kind of like, you know, when you, well, have, let's say, a girlfriend, for example, and then, like, you know, you get married, for example, like, somebody could be spontaneous at the outset, but then, like, you think that to yourself, wow, that's so wonderful, but then when you get married later on, then the spontaneity becomes like, why are you so mercurial? That sort of thing. Yeah. Which is very interesting. So, I just want to get maybe also your thoughts at the moment. You know, when you think back about the events of the past couple of months, well, there were lots of, like, all these questions about, like, the electoral system, you know, the primaries leading up to, well, the current situation and the judicial independence thing right there. I mean, how do you feel at the moment about, well, Dato Sri Anwar?
We all have high hopes for Dato Sri Anwar. I mean, I was helping out in the party since 2001. I became a party member in 2005. I worked full-time for him in 2006. And then 2008 and beyond, I became an elected legislator, right, at the state for 10 years and then at the federal level. So I think, you know, we have high hopes for him. You know, we know that, you know, the journey for him to get to the pinnacle was not a straightforward journey. Certainly, I mean, nowhere in the world, I guess, you can find all the twists and turns that you saw that he had to go through, right? So I think, you know, and I have full respect for him for that. And I do know that he has tried very hard. I mean, in many ways, in terms of international relations, he's been very vocal. In terms of getting investments, some economic reforms have been really bold, shift from blanket to targeted subsidies. I think my only concern is that we also need to address the concerns of the PH core supporters. Obviously, you know, he's not a leader of PH alone. He is the Prime Minister. He is governing for the entire country. But at the end of the day, he is the President of Keadilan and he is Chairman of PH, right? And this is the coalition that pretty much has been consistent, even during the past days of Pakatan Rakyat Barisan Alternatif since 1998, 1999, right? This sort of coalition, you take out past, has been that coalition that's brought him to power. You know, I tweeted this morning that, you know, the perception among some of our core supporters is that we are taking them for granted, right? That the sense that, oh, because they don't have anywhere to go to, so it's okay, but we try to win over the other voters, which is important, right? To regain, say, rural Malay vote, Borneo and all that. It's all critical. But it cannot be at the expense of our core supporters, right? Like the Malay say, yang dikejar tak dapat, yang dikendong berciciran. Right? So we don't want to be, you know, going after something that we don't get anyway, but we're letting go of what we have. So I think, I overall, I mean, I think he's been a good Prime Minister. But if we don't address those concerns, I think that there's a worry that, you know, we don't want him or Pakatan Harapan to be just there until the end of term. We want to push through the reforms and all that so that he can and the government can go in for another term.
Wonderful, thank you for that. And it's wonderful that you pointed that out, because like that definitely is a sort of like key concern, right? Like there's this question, you know, of you know, this whole journey that he went on, which interestingly, a little project, he actually liked it himself personally. It's a little journey for you know, like different parts of his journey. I'm not sure if
Correct.
like, you recognize any of these moments,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Yeah, everything, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I made this like a while ago.
Yeah.
That was like Umi Hafilda and then like just Asmin Ali and everything. Yeah, but anyway, when you kind of look at the current situation of like PH, right? So like your party has been unpopular with Malays. Like we can get it out of it, like it's unpopular with the Malays. If we add together like all of the votes from let's say the Malays, that kind of thing, so then you would see like 35% maximum like currently. If you go on social media in like different places, you know, I follow the past, the PM, Facebook pages, I hope they don't catch me, that kind of thing. And I see like, you know, whenever there's a sharing featuring Dato Sri Anwar, then like the laughter emoji like dominates kind of thing. So now you're in the capacity of the backbencher, so that maybe you have more liberty to be able to speak in some ways. And so what would you recommend that maybe the Madani government do now to ensure its survivability and appeal to, let's say, the rural Malays that the Madani government at the moment is not doing? Yeah, if you could.
Well, one thing that I think we tend to forget, even when you talk about Malay voters, is that actually integrity is a premium. So 2018, a lot of people voted for PH, especially West Coast. I mean, okay, let's just take the Malays, right? West Coast, particularly in the south, Selangor down to Johor, largely because they wanted change and they gave up on Barisan Nasional at that time. And they were comfortable enough to vote for Pakatan Harapan. In the East Coast, where people felt that perhaps Pakatan Harapan had less of a chance, or not so comfortable with us, with the AP and all that, then they voted for PAS. Okay, because that time it was keeping UMNO out, right? So fine. 2022, PN, which was PAS and Bersatu, managed to make inroads even into the West Coast, or 2023 state elections, right? So even my constituency, the second highest vote was from PN. And I think that, you know, they were going on the campaign of bersih dan stabil. Again, they were, I mean, whether it's true or not, we know that PN has their own issues, but they were showing that integrity is something that is important to them. That was how it was communicated.
That's how it communicated, yeah.
So I think when we want to win over the Malay votes, I think we know that there perhaps East Coast and all that is not impossible, but it's a lot of work needs to be done there. But I mean, now our first task is actually to win over even the voters in Selangor. You know, we lost seats in PG, like next to my old constituency, Taman Medan. That's where my family votes and all that. So I think we need to win over these seats first.
Right.
Yeah, before we even talk about others, because these were the seats that we used to win.
I see. It's kind of like my Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Yes, yeah. And my thing is that, you know, you can't be more Malay or more Islamic than PAS and UMNO or Bersatu, right? Because that's their identity. But yes, I mean, of course, sometimes we do shoot ourselves in the foot in how we present ourselves and all that. We aggravate the anger. But otherwise, you know, if you focus on bread and butter issues, you know, but at the same time present that we are really focused on reform, on cleaner government, I think we can win over that Malay support. So that's one thing that we need to do. Partly some of it is being done now, but I think more needs to be done, right? We've raised wages, we've done targeted subsidies and all that. But the other part of the equation to win over the Malay voters is communication. And I think this is where government needs to do better. Social media has now been dominated by the opposition. We have sometimes this sense that, oh, just because we're government, it's enough to rely on mainstream media. I mean, mainstream media is important. I mean, it is still an important component. But it alone cannot win you votes. You need to use it with social media. And I think we're losing the battle on online, in the online work. Right? And I think that is where the government needs to really work out. And I feel that there's a lot of things that are being pushed to the shoulders of the PM when there are other cabinet members or members of the party leadership that should actually bear the burden and actually carry it out. But we don't see it happening in terms of communicating the government's policies, in terms of, you know, you can't just dismiss everything. We have to address the concerns. You have to go down, and that Malay votes is one, but also the non-Malay voters, which have always been a strong support of us, right? So I think that is also something that we need to do more.
For sure. So you recommend that, like, you know, more members of like the PH, DAP, for example, like take initiative, I guess, to like talk to people, communicate to people across like the entire.
Well, I think even within keadilan,
Yeah.
I think we are not communicating, right? So a lot of things are being pushed to the shoulders of the Prime Minister, which I think, you know, he's the PM, he has a lot of things on his plate.
Yes.
And I think that is where we don't see the party doing enough in terms of dealing. I mean, so for the rest of PH and all that, I think, you know, that's number two. But at the end of the day, if our own party is not doing that, then, you know, and you know, like DAP, we are talking about Malay voters. And to be fair, I think they've done quite well to reassure the Malay voters. But the issue is, you know, we need keadilan and to a certain extent amanah to actually talk to the Malay voters, right? And communicate it well.
Now, I'd like to talk about the elephant in the room. So you speak about, well, communication. So then, of course, communication, it can happen, right? As a sort of like initiative, maybe like, oh, let's talk to like more people, that kind of thing. But we see from PKR that like it's split into different factions. There's, of course, what some might say is, well, the HIRUK faction, and then there's also the what we call DAMAI faction as well. So you have like people potentially sort of like communicating within like, you know, one particular faction, and then there's like, you know, people potentially communicating within like another faction here and there. So then when you think about like all of that, right, do you feel that that's a challenge, or that would be a challenge to what you aspire for in terms of like communications for the party, or do you think that it's something that we can kind of like paper over and like it'll be fine?
Well, that's why in the initial time, or in the initial period, we were of the opinion that we should do our party, we can amend the party constitution to do party elections later. We felt that, I mean, this is not even a PH government. It is a unity government. Right? It's a Madani government where you have BN, you have GPS, GRS.
Right.
So we know that it's a bit more volatile. There's nothing undemocratic about that. I mean, to me, it just makes, because you look at the UK, for example, you choose your party leader. It doesn't happen every 3 years. Right? And you see other countries that are doing it at that interval, and it can be very destabilizing. So we were in the opinion that, okay, let's do it after general election. Let's focus now. But at that time, they said, oh, we need to do this so that it's democratic. Fine. But then there were this, even the president, the prime minister himself said, let's give it, you know, the top two positions, let's keep it as it is for Anwar and Rafizi, so that we don't fight so much. And again, we were very happy. I mean, for vice president, it's normal. You need to have that competition, right?
Absolutely.
But then something else happened. So
it
happened, but we went through with it, you know, for I mean, I was just defending my position, Rafizi was defending his position.
Yeah.
And fine, people wanted to contest, that's fair. Then we got the result, right? And we said that, you know, we feel that if the party does not want us, then it's only right that we step down. Of course, people say there's no rule for this, but it's a moral decision. It's not about a legal decision, right? But, you know, after that, we have moved on. I mean, I think Rafizi has been very clear. You know, we said we want Anwar to stay on as Prime Minister until the end of term.
Absolutely.
All these opportunistic movements by the opposition and all that to rule Anwar and all that, I mean, that's what they want to do. We believe that this government, we have been given this mandate by the voters. We want to keep it until the end of term. Right?
All right.
But the only thing is that being backbenchers, we also have the freedom to speak out. And, you know, we've seen people like Hassan Karim. He has always been speaking out before. We were a member of the government. We can't. I mean, we were bound by collective responsibility. I can't go out and say that, no, I want to do this, but the government wants to do that. I can't, right?
How does the logic for that work actually? Like, if you're a member of the cabinet, then suddenly, like, you're not able to actually, like, criticize the government. What is the logic for that?
Well, it's so simple. It works everywhere in Westminster governments because, well, one is that anything you want to voice, you have to voice in cabinet or through the internal thing, because otherwise you will be in conflict with the government directly, and that it makes government untenable. So it's either you stay as a minister or deputy minister, and you toe the line. I mean, whatever you want to discuss, and we do have very robust debates in cabinet. Or you want to have that freedom, then you have to step down, right? That's fair to me. So that's what we're doing now, right? So we are voicing out certain things, and we believe that these are things that are fundamental to the country, and these are things which many PH and Keadilan supporters want to be voiced out, but they feel are not getting the attention, and we are just trying to play that role.
Just so I can clarify, is it kind of like if you are a minister, then you are part of the team, and like the team needs to be like on point?
Yeah.
Otherwise, like if it is that you go out and then like as a minister, then you immediately say contradict the Prime Minister, then it seems like, wow, like you're biting the hand. I don't want to say biting the hand that feeds you, because like that's not exactly how the analogy works, but like you're kind of like going against like the captain of the team immediately.
That's one, but also the fact is that constitutionally, Prime Minister is only first among equals in cabinet, among the ministers, right? This is not presidential government. And the authority lies with the cabinet.
I see.
So when you're part of the cabinet, so cabinet says, for example, we want everything to be red. I mean, you can't go out alone as a minister and say that you want everything to be yellow. Because it's been decided in cabinet.
I see. Yeah.
So you can have that debate. It can be yellow, purple, whatever. You give your views in the cabinet, but once it's decided, you're bound by it. And it's the same. It works across in the UK, in Australia, and most Westminster countries.
Okay, wonderful, cool. Yeah, great. So thank you for that. So in line with the transition that you have into your new backbencher role, so then, well, I guess like there's a new sort of like role that comes along with that, with sort of like benefits, costs along the way. Now, I want to talk a little bit about, well, your sort of like policy initiative as well. Now, we see that after, well, you and Dato' Sri Rafizi resigned, so then the Malaysian government under Dato' Sri Anwar proceeded to then ask several sitting ministers to take on the roles that you previously held. So then I believe that YB Amir Hamzah has taken on provisionally the role of the Ministry of Economy that was under Dato' Sri Rafizi. And now YB Johari Abdul Ghani has taken on your role in that capacity that you held, essentially as the Minister of Natural Resources and Environmental Sustainability. Now, we saw that when YB Amir Hamzah took over essentially YB Rafizi's portfolio, so then there was a lot of like that discussion on
yang berhenti menteri.
That essentially the RMK, which was essentially developed over multiple rounds of consultation with a very talented team over a very, very long period of time with multiple different stakeholders, that was revised along the way. Now, YB Amir said during his Keluar Sekejap podcast with Karin Jamaluddin, who I also previously interviewed on this channel, he said that essentially, well, the policy has to be aligned to the needs of the present government in order to be implemented. Now, we see also that you have your National Climate Change Bill, amongst which you were essentially calling for, what was it, a 45% reduction in carbon intensity by 2030, amongst a whole range of other things. By the way, YB Nik Nazmi here is the author of Saving the Planet, which you should check out. Where do we buy your book, YB?
You can buy it at most bookshops, or you can go online on MPH Kinokuniya to get the book.
Yeah. Cool, wonderful. So, tides have shifted ever since you have essentially taken on your new role. And when you think about the new policy environment, are you concerned that Malaysia will move away from what you had essentially envisioned for your National Climate Change Bill of our Malaysian government?
Well, I mean, yes, it is the call of the current government, including the current acting minister. But I think obviously the concern is that if there's already a good basis, and we are talking about the same administration, the Madani government, we're not talking about from a different prime minister to a different prime minister. These things have gone to cabinet. The RMK discussion, similarly, including for me, the climate change bill has already been passed in cabinet. So, you would want it as much as possible to be as straightforward and as smooth for it to be introduced in Parliament. And that is the hope for us. And as I said, I mean, I'll be very open that I will try to facilitate this thing. I mean, with the little experience that I had.
I think you are selling yourself short.
But we do want this to happen, right? So,
Yes.
so for me, whether a minister is there or different ministers there, and we do want it to happen. And I just hope that we can maintain that, right? And I think what we saw from the Malaysian plan issue was that we saw some disruption, and I think that's something that can be avoided. Because we've gone through that vigorous process. The civil servants have put their time in. It's the same administration. Yes, okay, different ministers might have different focus, emphasis, and all that. Fair enough, but I think if you can do it with minimal disruption, that would be best.
Wonderful, thank you for that. And now, kind of like zooming out, we know of course that like minimal disruption is kind of ideal, we can say, but we live in, well, what some might say are very volatile and uncertain times. There's a whole acronym there, VUCA, as you may have heard before. What with Trump tariffs, lots of countries experiencing right now like increases in nationalism. I heard in fact like the other day that Japan, because of a YouTuber, has become Japan first along the way. And I find it interesting to sort of like think about also your recent engagement with Singapore and sort of like the broader region. So I kind of want to think about where we are geopolitically. I mean, when you think about the last couple of months, right? So like, what do you think maybe has Malaysia's role geopolitically been? And what do you anticipate it evolving towards? We saw that Rafizi Anwar announced essentially a call, for example, for all countries to, well, end the conflict in Gaza, amongst other things. But where do you see us kind of like in holistic, big picture sense in the geopolitics of the world?
It is unfortunate we are living in unprecedented times. The rule-based order that has been the core to the world, in fact, since the Second World War, and certainly what has been seen as a consensus since the 1990s, is now increasingly under threat, right? And you see, I think the whole world can see the hypocrisy. I mean, when, for example, when it came to Ukraine, a lot of the developed world was trying to get the developing world on board to be there with Ukraine. And yes, I mean, if the invasion was certainly against the global order and norms, but then when the same happened to Palestine, Gaza, then you see the hypocrisy of the developed world. And I mean, to be fair, some European countries have been very progressive in this, but many, especially the United States, have been preventing resolutions and whatnot against Israel. Some people are critical that Malaysia wants to take a leading role in that, but I believe that is mistaken. I mean, this is one of the things that I think the Prime Minister has done right. Since even Tunku Abdul Rahman, and Tunku Abdul Rahman is seen as very British and all that, but he was among the earliest voices against the apartheid system in South Africa. Similarly, under Dr. Mahathir on apartheid, on Bosnia, on various issues. I think Malaysia was very loud, very vocal. Including on Palestine. So similarly on this, I think Malaysia cannot shirk our global our responsibility as we've always punched above our weight. At the same time, it does pose a challenge because we are a trading nation. We are in a way caught between China and the US. We both trade heavily with both countries. Unfortunately, I think that what the US is doing, it's actually people are sensing that why that the US is not really interested in the region anymore, right? And China is a reality that we live next to. And obviously we have to navigate that. In the past, people look forward to the US because it was talking about values, it was talking about, but no, now, I mean,
now we have Nik Adams.
You have Nik Adams, and unfortunately, that's people don't see that anymore. Yeah.
Right. Interesting. Thank you for that. So do you see in the near or medium term, right, that like Malaysia will pivot strongly towards China, or do you think that there will be this reality where we will somehow, by the miraculous balance of powers, the skills within Datuk Sri Anwar, be able to navigate in the same way that he navigated through Liwat 1, 2, and then eventually also towards the Prime Ministership, this geopolitical balance with the facility needed to maintain that relationship? Or do you think that there will be a point at which we do the whole, oh, we are suddenly a member of BRICS. Oh, we are now going to visit China, and everybody in Malaysia shall learn Chinese, which is not likely by any means. But geopolitically, do you see that we will pivot towards China in a hard way, or do you think that we will maintain that balance?
I think Malaysia has to maintain that balance. I mean, again, China is obviously important, but we also have some differences with them when it comes to South China Sea, in a way that we don't have with the US, for example, any direct disagreements. So I think we need to be pragmatic, both principled and pragmatic in a way, navigating, and that's obviously the art of diplomacy. But Malaysia has to be on that balance, and I think there are ways. That's why now this year we are chairing ASEAN. We should try to see what ASEAN can do better. Obviously, ASEAN is, in a way, it's not the European Union. We don't have common political institutions and whatnot. System of governments within ASEAN, you can have absolute monarchy, you have a communist Vietnam, you have presidential democracies, you have parliamentary democracy, so it's very varied. But I do think that there are things that we can work together better as ASEAN. And one of the points I think on which the government is really pushing through is for example, ASEAN power grid, right? Like being more reliant on energy across the region. Like what Western Europe is, right? So if, for example, we are becoming more reliant, and hopefully that also bolsters our relationships, because you don't want to bomb or go to war with a country that is supplying energy or water to you. So I think that is something which is positive for ASEAN, and it's something that we have to explore more as we navigate this tension at the global level.
Wonderful. Thank you for that. I am curious about one particular topic which consumes, of course, both the US and China. We see, of course, that there's a proliferation really of data centers in Malaysia at the moment, and part of that is because of the war almost for super intelligence between the US and China. AI companies throwing in billions of dollars here, there, and everywhere, competing on benchmark after benchmark. Elon Musk coming up on Twitter, now X, talking about his new model and so on and so forth. While there's this sort of environmental cost, right, that comes along with all of that in, our region and in different parts of the world as well. Do you see that maybe Malaysia will take, shall we say, an increasing, an unchanged, or declining role in, the AI, shall we say, wars in the days ahead? Or if not war, then the development of AI in the days ahead?
Well, I think AI and data are both important things that we want to be part of. Obviously, yes, as you mentioned, there is that race for dominance across the world. But I think, in the past we were attractive because when people found that when Singapore made it more difficult to open data centers because they have limited land, they have limited, they need to take care of the price of water and energy. So it was driven to Malaysia, a lot of these data centers. Selectively, I believe that data centers coming in can be good, because I do think that we should charge, we can charge them more, we can get them to drive investments into renewable energy, into water circularity, things which were not previously possible with other factories, right? Because people were paying very low tariffs for those things. But I do see that MITI are now a bit more selective in terms of data centers coming in, which is good. We don't want to take every data center. So if it provides really good AI, then we should take it. Because on its own, there's not a lot of workers that are needed and all that. But it does have that pool of high skilled workers, but it's not big. It's not labor intensive.
I see.
It's more capital intensive. But we just have to be more selective.
I see.
At the end of the day, even when you're campaigning against something, you do use data. You protest for to take care of the environment. You use data. You use AI and all that. So yes, we must be mindful. We must be mindful that it's not finite. It puts a lot of demand on energy, on water, and we have to create a framework to allow them to use more renewable energy, circular water and all that. But not being part of it at all is also, I think, not an option.
Wonderful. Thank you for that. Now, sort of transitioning into the penultimate question that I have, although this is kind of like a big one in the sense that it's something that you wrote a book about. You literally wrote a book called Saving the Planet. When you think about like the multiple poly-crisis world that we're in right now, it can almost seem that like a lot of things seem to be falling to the wayside. Like we have climate change as a sort of like collective action problem into which, well, there can be free riders who essentially participate and choose to pull out at the very last moment. What is it that makes you concerned about the planet? Why is it such, shall we say, a concerning issue to you, to the point that, it's something that you would write a book about, that you would dedicate, your career towards?
Well, one of the things that I found, I learned a lot, just as I think I like to mention, when I went into the portfolio, I was a newcomer. I was not someone known for talking a lot about the planetary crisis or climate change, environment, or nature. But, when you're in the ministry, it can seem very technical. When you go to COP, you talk about the various acronyms, the various frameworks and all that. And that's needed, obviously, at the climate or environmental diplomacy level. But how do you cascade this to the public in a way that people can understand and people can relate to? So that was what I tried to do with the book. I even tried to leverage on our traditions, on our faiths. Ultimately, to me, it's a issue of morals, right? When we make this choice of whether we want to be sustainable or not with the planet. That was the intention, and I think we are in this unique position where we know the problem, we know the solutions, and the solutions are there. But what is needed is that political will to make the right choices. And obviously, it has to be put in context of climate justice, what the developing world must do. It can't be put on the same standard as the developed world. But not doing anything is also not an option. So that's the main message of the book. Yeah.
Wonderful. Cool.
Yeah.
And so it's wonderful that you mentioned political will. So then now we come back, of course, to this key question really of how, for example, we allocate resources. Well, that's an economic question, right? Of course, how you take the finite to accomplish what is needed to fulfill the infinite wants of man or humans, if we were to use a more gender neutral term. And of course, we come over to politics yet again. We are in this era where we are about 2.5 years away from a general election and various other things like that. I'm going to just throw this in here, but would you like to be Prime Minister one day?
Well, I think Rafizi actually wrote that in his as his ambition when he was at that time I said programming engineer. Obviously, you when you go to play, I give you an example. You play football, you start at an academy, and you enjoy it at 6, 8 years old. You dream to go all the way to play at least for the national team or in Europe or something. Similarly, if you're in politics, I think obviously being a minister or higher is something that one aspires to in a way, right? But I think for me, I'll see where it goes. Most importantly, I think I want to achieve what I aim to do. Whether it means I become a prime minister or just a minister or what, that depends. But the most important thing for me is always to see multiracial politics in Malaysia to remain a viable alternative to the more race or religious base that we traditionally see, and that we are able to become a country that is more economically just to everyone, and that is providing freedom for the people through institutional reforms. Right. So I think when we formed Malaysia, the declaration was a country that is founded on liberty and justice. So I think that those are the two principal things that we want to focus on and to deliver. So if when I retire from politics in whatever capacity, I can see that multiracial politics is much a more viable alternative, and we can achieve that liberty and justice, then I'll be happy.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, YB Nik Nazmi. It's been an honor. I'm going to throw in another question right here. I know that you're friends with YB Rafizi Ramli. Would you recommend that YB Rafizi Ramli come on this podcast?
Well, I have no choice, right? So,
considering.
So I would invite Rafizi to consider to appear on this podcast as well.
Okay, wow. Well, thank you so much for that endorsement. But last but not least, I guess if there were a message that you think is important to share with the world, that you feel suddenly occurs to you, I know of course like you have multiple different types of projects. There's of course the Lebih Masa podcast. I don't know how much Masa you're going to be having since Parliament is now in session, but thinking right now, right here where you are at this particular moment in this juncture of your existence, and all these years leading up to this particular time, what do you feel is one message that you feel would be suitable to share with the world?
Well, one suitable message is to me to always be true to yourself and to pursue your dreams, right? I mean, I think for me that was what I did when I came back. The traditional route would have been to join the corporate world, but I pursued my dreams. Obviously, I mean, I had a lot of social capital. I mean, I don't pretend otherwise. I had the option to do that. You know, if maybe I need to fend for my family, you know, I'm the only one who went to university and all that, then that's different. But I had that luxury. I mean, and I feel that since I've been blessed, I was born into a middle class family and all that, this is my way of paying back. So, so if you have that choice, pursue your dreams and be true to yourself. And you can look back and think that kernel of idealism that you started with, you can remain true to it. Obviously, you develop new perspectives, new views. That's fine, but I think that as long as you're true to yourself, that's the most important thing.
Wonderful, and that is a wonderful message to end this podcast with. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
YB Nik Nazmi, Nik Ahmad. It was a pleasure speaking
Thank
to you.
you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. All right.